Hi friends, and welcome to the bow tie block. I have already best pressed my fabrics and let them cool down before I started cutting. And now I have cut them. This pretty light print here will be cut into 8 3.5-inch squares. Our mauve with leaves will be cut into also 8 3.5-inch squares. And then you'll also have 8 1 3/4-inch squares. We're going to take our C squares, which are our 8 1 3/4-inch squares, and on the wrong side of our C squares, we are going to draw a diagonal line with our iron off friction pen, like so, from corner to corner, and repeat with all 8 squares. We're now going to take one of our A squares and a C square, and we're going to place the C square in the corner of our A square, right sides together, with the diagonal line like so. This diagonal line is going to be a sew line this time, not a guide. It's going to be a sew line. So you're going to actually sew directly on top of that diagonal line. And we'll repeat the process with all 8 of our A squares. So with all of our 8 A squares, we've sewn directly on the line. And now we're going to cut 1/4 inch away from that line to trim away this corner, so that then this will flip back like so. So now we've trimmed off the corners and pressed open our A unit blocks, and then just grab your ruler, and if yours are like mine, you don't really need to trim anything up because mine are coming up exactly at 3.5 inches squared. So that's what they should be at. So just measure up your squares, make sure they're at 3.5 inches, trim up as needed. And then we're going to grab our B square and put it together with our A square, like so, right sides together, and a nice scant 1/4-inch seam. Like so. And repeat with all 8 squares. I wasn't going to pin these blocks originally. It doesn't say so in the instructions, but they're only 3.5 inches. But I just had a funny feeling that it might go a little wonky here. When you're going over this seam and this is on the diagonal. So you do you, but I have decided to just pin so that I'm starting and stopping and my 2 little units match up perfectly. Now you've sewn together and pressed your A, B blocks, so you'll have 8 of these. And now, as per your pattern diagram, let's lay these out and get them sewn together. So we're going to take 2 units at a time. I'm going to take 2 units, put them right sides together. I'm going to pin them up and do a scant 1/4-inch seam. And then I'll repeat for the other units, like so. Pin and scant 1/4-inch seam. Sorry, the video where I sewed these together didn't record, so just pretend that you watched me sewing these together. And now we are going to simply take these 2 here. If you've pressed in the same direction when you were putting together these units, then these 2 will nest together quite nicely. So again, just right sides together, pin Well, nest your seam and then pin and then scant 1/4 inch seam. And same here for these two. Nest your seam, pin, and scant 1/4 inch seam. Okay, last step for this cute little block is we're going to take our 2 rows, right sides together, and these should all nest nicely. So nest these up, put a pin right through them, and pin along this edge, and do a nice scant 1/4 inch seam, and we will be done. Now that last final seam that we just sewed, I'm going to press this open just because at this point we've got a lot of seams intersecting and it'll get really bulky here in the center, I feel, if you press it to one side. So I've opened it up, and I'm going to press this open and then give this one final little touch of best press and set that seam down. I'm going to let it cool, and then we will make sure this squares up to 12.5 inches. And there you have your bow tie block. So make sure that you square this up to 12.5 inches. Give it a nice press and you'll be done. Hope you enjoyed it. Hi friends, and welcome to the rail fence block. So you'll have 4 fabrics in your package and you are going to best press these first. Give them a really good, nice dose of your best press and press them nicely first. And then we are going to cut these to 2 inches by 30 inches. And then what we're going to do is we are going to sew these all together. Now this is a very simple block. However, there's a few things we want to make certain of because long seams can get wonky very easily. So technically this is a very simple block, but there's a few things I want you to make note of. One, the best pressing, because this is going to have, again, this can get wonky and it can get stretchy when you're sewing along a long seam. It's not mentioned in the instructions, but I'm going to, with mine, I am going to pin my seam together. Again, that way, I know that I've cut this precisely to 30 inches. I know that when I go from one end to the other, I'm not going to end up with these edges being uneven, that somehow it's gone askew when I've sewn along it. So just as a precaution, I'm going to pin those seams together as I'm sewing these 4 pieces together. And again, as is written in the pattern, you're going to alternate your seams. So you're going to go down one side and up the other, down one side. That way, again, if you're sewing all of your seams in one direction, it can cause your fabrics to get slightly wonky. So let's pin these together. Scant 1/4 inch seam. Let's go. Okay, so I sewed these 2 seams. Again, I made sure I sewed these in one direction. So both of these seams I was sewing this way. Now this seam I will sew in the alternate direction. We are now going to press our seams all towards one side. So all your seams will be going in one direction. Let your fabric cool, of course, before you go to cut again. And now we are going to cut our fabric down into 6.5-inch segments. And I'm going to use my slotted ruler because it makes it super easy that way. Okay, so we squared these up to 6.5 inches. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but please note this pattern comes up very precise. You have to use a scant 1/4 inch and you have to press your fabrics very well, because literally where these are pieced together, this came up at exactly 6.5 inches, like squeaking right in. I literally did not have to trim up any of them. So please note that I was using a very scant 1/4 inch and really pressed these open as best as possible to get that 6.5 inches. Otherwise you will be very short on this end. Okay, so let's lay out our block. Okay, as per your pattern, we are going to lay out our blocks now and get them sewn together. This is a fun block. It's really cute. So again, we have A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. So you can see here our D is really what creates that nice little detail in the middle. Okay, so we are going to take these two, pin them together, and scant 1/4 inch seam, take these two, pin them together, scant 1/4 inch seam. So we've sewn together these two blocks and these two blocks. It's not written in the pattern, but I have pressed these ones that way, and these two blocks, I've pressed that seam that way. So again, now when we put these two together, our center seam here will nest, and that will have a nice perfect match here. So let's nest that seam, pin up this side here, scant 1/4 inch seam, and we'll be done. And there you have your rail fence block. I love it. I think it was fun, and I like how it showcases the fabrics. So we're gonna just make sure that we're gonna square this up if you need to 12.5 inches, and as you can see, mine is just squeaking in at 12.5 inches. So just square yours up or trim off those little hairs if you need to, and you'll be done. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.